What's up, everybody? My name's Sam Ross. My group's presenting on opioids. I'm going to be talking to everybody about the key substances found within the group, as well as the empirical research that goes along with opioids. I'm going to put my slides up on the screen so you guys can follow along and see what I'm talking about, and I'll explain things as we go. Let's get started. All right, so first off, I want to start off by differentiating between two terms you've probably heard lots but don't necessarily know the difference between, because I know I didn't. Our presentation is on opioids, but I know the term opiates is often used interchangeably and it's thrown around, and there's a bit of a difference between the two, so I'm just going to explain those to clarify. An opioid is any substance, natural or synthetic, that binds to the opioid receptors of the brain. Okay, so keeping that in mind, an opiate is considered an opioid. An opiate is any substance that is naturally derived from the opium poppy plant. This can also include semi-synthetic drugs where at least part of the substance is natural. So the key word for opiates is natural. Whereas opioids, of course, can include the naturally derived substances, which is the opiates, and this includes substances like morphine, but they also include semi-synthetic substances such as heroin and fully synthetic substances such as fentanyl. All of these substances act on the opioid receptors of the brain, and that's why they're called opioids. Opiates are simply a smaller category within the larger umbrella term of opioids. According to the research I found, the term opioid just makes a bit more sense to use because it includes all of the substances in the class and acknowledges that fully synthetic substances are becoming more common because they're made from chemicals. The term opiates is being used less and less often. I think it was probably more common before, but since opioids makes just a bit more sense, they've stopped using opiates as much. And it's becoming more obsolete because it just falls under the category of opioids. So, yeah, it just makes more sense to have one term that refers to everything in the class. This handy little diagram to help you get a visual for what I'm talking about because I know it's a little confusing to follow since they sound so similar. So at the top, you can see that it says opioids, which is the umbrella term for all of the substances in the category. Underneath, the three categories of opioids are natural, semi-synthetic, and fully synthetic substances. Underneath natural, it says also known as opiates. This just indicates that another way to explain opiates is naturally derived opioids. All three categories of opioids act on the opioid receptors of the brain. So all opiates are opioids, but not all opioids next, I'm going to talk about the key substances. There are a number of substances that are considered opioids. If you check out my scary skull, he's full of the different names of opioids, as well as a lot of brand names that go along with them. I'm sure you'll probably recognize a few. From the very beginning, opioids have been considered narcotic analgesics. Narcotic is simply another word for opioid, and analgesic means painkiller. So opioids are known as painkillers. If you look at the chart seen here on the slide, there's a list of common opioids used as analgesics or painkillers and some of their common brand names. You might recognize a few of these. Some of the common opioids used as analgesics include codeine, OxyContin, buprenorphine, fentanyl and carfentanil, hydromorphone, and propraxifene. And of course, there's more than just these. Now, while opioids serve a great purpose for relieving moderate to severe and even chronic pain, they have a large potential to be abused. Many of the same types of opioids that are used as analgesics are also misused and abused by many people throughout the world. Some of the most common opioids that are misused or used for recreational purposes are heroin, codeine, OxyContin, buprenorphine, fentanyl, carfentanil, hydromorphone, and propraxifene. So I'm going to focus on three main drugs for a minute, and they're fentanyl, carfentanil, and heroin. Fentanyl is a synthetic drug that has been being misused for years now, but has recently gained more worldwide popularity. It is highly potent, which makes it an easy substance for individuals to overdose from. Fentanyl is about 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine, and about 3 to 4 grains of fentanyl is enough to kill an average adult who has no tolerance. Provincially in Alberta, the number of fentanyl deaths has roughly doubled almost every year since 2011 when there were 6. It is also less expensive than a lot of other substances when making it, and therefore it is frequently used to lace different drugs, such as heroin. It was designed as a strong analgesic for intense pain, but has moved to the illicit drug world. There are many different ways to ingest or consume fentanyl, including inhaling, intranasally, and transdermally. Carfentanil is an extremely potent synthetic opioid. It is intended only for use on large animals to immobilize or sedate them, and it is not intended for human consumption. It is approximately 10,000 times more potent than morphine, and as little as 1 grain can kill an average adult with no tolerance. The textbook stated that carfentanil, while not intended for humans, has been contributing to an increase in overdoses and had caused at least 2 deaths in North America in 2016. This number has grown immensely since then. According to the city of Lethbridge, a lethal batch of carfentanil is blamed for 42 overdoses that occurred over a single weekend in Lethbridge in late February of 2018, only 2 years later. Fentanyl and carfentanil are both large contributors to the opioid crisis being experienced in many parts of the world right now. So I just wanted to highlight this chart in terms of the opioid crisis in Canada. As you can see, in 2011, there were only 6 fentanyl-related deaths. In 2018, there were 673. That is more than an 11,000% increase in 7 years, and that's only from fentanyl. Now I'm going to discuss heroin for a minute. Heroin is one of the most well-known opioids and probably comes to mind when you think of or hear the word opioids. It is a semi-synthetic substance that comes from morphine. The individuals who created it claim that upon trying it themselves, it made them feel heroic, which is where it got its name, heroin. In the United States, heroin has no recognized medical use at the moment. When it first came about, it was believed to be a treatment for morphine addictions, which were common in the 19th century after thousands of soldiers were given morphine to decrease pain from their battle wounds. It was also thought to be a treatment for the coughing associated with tuberculosis and pneumonia, which were common at the time. The frequent administration of heroin around this time period led to mass amounts of the United States becoming addicted to heroin. Approximately 80% of heroin users started out with prescription opiates. When administered intravenously, approximately 100% of the heroin is absorbed by the body. Intranasal users report feeling a gentle sense of euphoria, whereas those who smoke or inject heroin report feeling what is referred to as a rush or a flash. This is described as being similar to a sexual orgasm and lasts for approximately 1 minute. The half-life of heroin ranges from 2 to 3 minutes to as long as 36 minutes. Other feelings reported by individuals who use heroin include a feeling of warmth under the skin, dry mouth, nausea, and a feeling of heaviness in the extremities. So after all that, I'm just going to talk about some fun facts that I found when I was doing some research, things that I thought were interesting or shocking to me. So in the 35 to 54 age cohort, the number of deaths from intentional or unintentional narcotic overdose exceeds those of firearms or motor vehicle accidents. Nationally, it has been estimated that approximately 36% of the adult population in the United States used a prescription pain reliever in the last 12 months, so it's pretty common, and this is only under physician supervision. 97% of individuals who begin to misuse prescription narcotic analgesics obtain their drug not from an illicit drug dealer, but from a physician who prescribed it, or from a family or from a friend or relative who had a prescription themselves. Only about 16% of people with an identified opioid use disorder ever receive the treatment necessary to help them learn to abstain from narcotics. And the term junkie was coined in the 1920s and referred to individuals addicted to heroin who supported their habit by collecting scrap metal from industrial dumps and sold it to junk metal collectors. Finally, I would just like to say thank you for watching our presentation, and I hope everybody is enjoying their stay-at-home online school stuff that we're all trying to figure out now. Thanks again. Bye, guys.